So, our penultimate speaker is Director of Organic Search at PeakAce, which is a German-based company. His expertise is large-scale SEO, so million-plus pages being handled at any time. So, a background in software development and more than 15 years experience in online marketing, he still relishes the challenge of a good technical digital marketing. So, PeakAce, as I said, is from Berlin. Very focused on serving all things digital to their clients. So please welcome to the stage Bastian Grimm, who's going to talk about, well, the title of his presentation is "Okay Google, what's next? Getting control over the unexpected." I probably said.
Yeah, true. Thank you. That's a long intro, isn't it? So I have no intro slides because I've brought way too many with content. So let's see how we manage with the 20 minutes. The deck is online later, so no need to kind of take notes. I'm an SEO by heart, really, and so there was no chance I'd do like a pure CRO talk. So forgive me for that. So I try to kind of mix things a bit together. When I started this, Google looked similar to something like this, and then the really funny thing that I liked on that former homepage was that it says like the index contains 25 million pages, which is probably what they crawl now by like 2 minutes or something. And then mid of the 2000s, we had even this funny left-hand navigation. Anyone remember that by any chance? Yeah, and there was this really big upscream when they took that away, right? It was really, really funny times. But granted, that was quite a while ago, actually. So I guess right now things do look quite different. I mean, we have local listings, we have things like Google's hotel search, we have the knowledge graph panel on the right-hand side, or social stream integrations like from Twitter. We have their own kind of formats, AMP supposedly being very fast. We have one boxes, you can book flights, you can do a weather lookup, you can do even insanely stupid stuff. Maybe that's just me, but I mean, playing sheep sounds in search results, seriously? I mean, anyone ever done that, like by any chance? What's the use case for that? Anyways. They try to answer questions, right? So what's a hangover and anything that might be important. On match days, football or soccer, depending on where you're from. That's on a recent match day in Germany. So you type in the club, and then you have an entire kind of page takeover, right? So there's no kind of organic search results left. And then you could say, well, this kind of happens, or is supposed to be happening rarely. You would also say this is supposed to be happening rarely, but still we have them. Is that okay to do Trump jokes still, or? Yeah, perfect. But on the day of the election, and that was quite interesting. And sorry for the German screenshot there. But when you did any kind of query related on the elections, so in this case like the new president USA, or who won the election, all of that, you got this big box, right? So you had you had the distribution, you had the states and who voted for whom, etc., etc. Again, no organic results, but the good thing, or the bad thing, depending on where you're on, the searcher kind of instantly got this info and what they were looking for, right? So there was no need to kind of leave the search result whatsoever, right? You got served kind of straight away. Any Game of Thrones fans in here, by any chance? Good. Yeah. Okay. That works. So that was in the US when they released the last season, and then this is mobile search results, and then you just have to imagine that I was scrolling like a madman to find the first result. Actually, that is not a Google property. So this is all Google-owned content, and if you click on something, then essentially you would just do another search. Or got some data. So you had to scroll down, and then there in the middle, this is my playing field, this one tiny, stupid kind of organic result that was left. But again, as a fan of the series, with a generic query coming to the site, I got what I was looking for. There was, again, no need for me to go somewhere. So in this case, I was the happy guy. And Google really wants to kind of rank, in a sense, and I got to the point in a sec, what is best for their users, or for the searcher in that case. And they're really getting better and better in understanding, what the intent of that search query is, or was. and then put the stuff there that kind of satisfies this need. And that could be, the best site, but it could also be, and that's probably the point to argue about, their own offerings in that case. But let's get back to mobile for a second, and the mobile screen from Game of Thrones. So we all know that desktop, or the other way around, mobile surpassed desktop 2015 already, right? And mid of 2016, it was the latest data I could come up with. It's like 60% of all queries, or search queries in this case, have been kind of done on mobile. But it's not that people went entirely crazy just using the mobile phone. In this mobile context, we're talking also about voice search queries. And then 20% of those mobile is actually voice. And that's not really surprising if you look at the numbers, like 10 million active Amazon Echoes just in the US alone. That's quite a bit. So I thought also we need to kind of have a quick look on the digital landscape of assistants that we have out there. I mean, obviously, yes, phone, understood, smartwatch, same game. We have the Amazon, the Echo. We have Google Home or with the assistant on there. We have navigation systems that finally get a bit better. When you talk to them, they actually even understand what you're saying. We have all this stuff in kind of home automation that could be Nest or any other, thermostat or intelligent kind of lighting or whatever that is. And we have fridges, right? Fridges now come with camera, with a screen, with internet access. They can tell you when the milk is empty. And that's not future, that's there. And they have some things in common, actually. So the one thing is that they all don't have any visible, or at least a very, very much reduced interface left. They don't have a physical keyboard. That makes sense, I guess. So they also don't have that classic search interface, really. Plus, they have one common way to kind of work with, or interact with, and that's voice, right? Because it's just way more user-friendly and way more comfortable. So some quick numbers on that as well. The main reason for using that, obviously, it's way faster and easier than typing, depending on obviously where you are. Also, I think that's also not really surprising. Voice search on the phone is still the most common case. I think that makes sense, again, mostly when you're driving or when you're kind of otherwise occupied and hands are full. Plus, and that's funny, I think, 40% of people feel annoyed if someone else is using voice search in terms of talking to the device. That made me really grin. So, I think one of the fundamentals that we also need to understand is the difference of classic kind of text search and voice search. And if you look at the kind of the query or the query differences, I guess the main thing, if you look at voice, is that it kind of much more resembles a conversation, really. It doesn't feel entirely natural. I have a hard time talking to my phone still, but it is more natural than what you would have done on the classic, typing something in. So the weather in Dublin, or just weather, would be something like, how is the weather in Dublin today, if you talk to a device. So it just feels more like a conversation. And then there's some exclusive data I brought for you. That's from Bing and Cortana in this case. And then if they look at the numbers, and Cortana, as you know, is also running on Windows 10 on the desktop, so it's not only mobile, it's desktop and mobile in this case. But if you look at the numbers, you would think that a voice search is crazy long-tailed, given what I've just said, with all the kind of natural way how to talk to a device. But that apparently is also not really the case. So, and I know this is very hard to read, so again, feel free to download. But if you look into the different categories of that Bing and Cortana are tracking, then also, funnily enough, for voice search, there's loads of queries, actually, that is only 2 or 3 or 4 words. So it's not necessarily that people are starting and firing away entire sentences to the devices, really. Who's using, or who had the chance to play around with a Google Home or Google Home Mini or Google Assistant? No, it's not that many, actually. Okay. So then maybe just to give you a very quick context on how that works or what they're actually doing, if you compare something, voice search, and then you compare that to a classic search result. So if I would be doing something like, and I don't do it, otherwise all the devices go off now, but if I would be doing something like this, then the Google Assistant is reading like an answer that is based, in this case, the peak ACG is located Berlin, Leuschner 13, XYZ kilometers away. And they take that from the right-hand side, so again, from the knowledge graph panel. So this is all structured data. So essentially, if you want to figure out what they're using, you can just run kind of a side-by-side comparison and then understand what they are picking, really. Or if you would do something like that for the points of interest in Dublin or sites of Dublin, they would be reading kind of the first 3 that you find on the desktop, at something like, and they are more available, and then give you like like the chance to kind of interact with one or the other and then go to that destination, or they read that. But, I mean, for those of you who have probably just raised your hands, I know that it's not entirely working every time. So I guess there's a bit of room for improvement. So what you guys should, and what I think is necessary to do, and I try to bring 3 big points here, is instant responses. So this kind of seamless user journey without interruptions, I think, is more and more important because devices are changing. So that means, first of all, you need to be relevant, right? So if someone is just saying or asking a query that's something like, what is lion? Then the question is, what is the context? So is that the sweet? Is that the serious? Or what is, what's the bigger context of that person? And that could also be true for, something more specific. So how much is 1 cup? But if your site has the answer, but the answer is not structured properly, then you have a problem. And structuring data is one of the big things, and this is not really new, but it's still not, properly utilized, I would say. So, and in 2011, Google, and at the time it was also Yahoo, it was Bing, and then now it's Yandex as well. They launched something called schema.org. Schema is basically kind of extending HTML markup and give meaning to something that's not entirely clear at first glance. So if you think about zip code versus phone number, this is just, not. It's different in every language and eventually in every country, and then it's not easy for an engine to understand what is what. So basically, schema markup is therefore, whatever you do, just look it up, figure out if there's something that fits to your website. So it could be, if you're a local business, pick the restaurant markup. So if you're selling e-commerce stuff, then pick up the, product markup, etc., etc. Something that's new, and that's why I put it in here, is called schema.org Speakable. So the idea is that you could mark up content on your site that is relevant for the voice search devices to be found and then used as an answer to a question that a person might eventually have. And then Google says themselves that they would want to live in a world where that's not needed, but they're just not there yet. So I assume that 1, you're helping them, B, they're using that to just train parts of the AI. So really make sure that you help them to understand what on your site is really relevant. And then do provide direct and fast feedback, right? So Google, and that's, again, already 2.10, but has been proven over and over again, really cares about performance. And I do as well, but not so much because I think it's an SEO thing, but rather I think it's user satisfaction, right? I don't want to wait. And they're really obsessed with that, so they were even testing search results and labeled them to be, this site is slow. And I don't want to be the idiot who has that to his site, because that obviously is killing CTR straight away, right? So if I'm labeled to be a slow loading site, I have a problem. And then the time span that you have is roughly 2 to 3 seconds to make a site available and have people interact with it. So there's a checklist on my deck. I'm not going into that, for all the basics that you should and need to do to make any given site really, really fast. The big issue with performance, and I'm done with that part, is that people are measuring wrong numbers. So have a look at what is really relevant for your site. So if you think YouTube, right? We had that example just earlier. So if I go to YouTube, the only thing I care about is that the video loads freaking fast. I don't need the navigation, I don't need the header, I don't need anything else. So think about what's the hero element for any given site and make that thing appear very fast, and the rest can come later. This is how to do it. There's something called the Performance Observer. They implemented that in Chrome recently. There's the code and everything that you need to track that into within Analytics or in Google Data Studio. There's example reports, and then you can just have a play with it. But that's really cool because that's actually a relevant number and not something like a stupid page speed insight score. And the second thing is be convenient. So I'm thinking that the big and overarching goal should be to become kind of this high-level concierge, really, for your user. So this is an example from a German price comparison site, Check24. So first visit is not personalized. Obviously, they don't know who I am. They don't know what I want to do. Second visit is personalized in a sense. So I was running a car insurance comparison, and they offer me on the homepage again, without being logged in or anything, they offer me to kind of go back into my kind of comparison, pick up the results, and continue from there. What would be even cooler, and this is just by accident, I run a comparison for Audi, and they gave me the Audi image, but they didn't do that for BMW. So if you would be even better than them, then what you would do is you would personalize also not only based on what I did, but also based on the product and the product specifics, just to make it even more tailored to my kind of to my kind of demands, and also get me back into into doing that. The other thing that you could do with personalization is actually be kind of grabbing my attention. This was really creepy. Well, it wasn't creepy. It just really, it kind of struck me. There was a split test we've seen around, and then they used our office IP address and looked it up based on the registrar data, and then put in our company name. I was like, oh, wow, cool. Why is my name in there? I've never done anything with them. So it wasn't A/B testing. That's why we probably could find it in the cookie. But that's really nice. So if you can get the data and you can do it in a non-creepy way, I think that's cool. Also for like boring kind of interactions, so like filling out forms, I would try to make that as human-like as possible. So if you know the name, address that person by name, and just make it tailored to them, really, in a sense. And the third thing is, don't really reinvent what doesn't need to be reinvented. So there's some known principles that you should stick with. And then when we built the deck with the team, we were discussing if we should put this in here because it feels so basic. But then we revisited like loads of the audits that we did back in the day, or the last year actually. And then there's always this thing with good and bad readability. I mean, hopefully, the sun is on there, so I'm sorry for that. But the left-hand lower level is actually insanely hard to read even on my screen because it's a black background and like a very thin white font. So this is not a good idea. But on the other hand, you can do green on green if you work with proper contrast. So really figure out, and make sure that when you build sites, you stick with these usability principles. This is also true not only for readability, but also for clickability. So if you have links and no one sees that this is actually something that you can click on, no one will click on. That doesn't make any sense. So don't hide your links. If they are links, make them stand out. Otherwise, they won't get any traffic, right? And then that doesn't really work. Language is also a big thing. So if you understand how your audience is talking, right? So in this case, we had a site that they were covering sport news like soccer and all the other stuff, and then they had this very good journalists, but they were like using crazy complicated language, and then I was reading this, I was like, what the hell am I reading? It's like a study, or what is that? It's not sports news, really. It's like I want to feel how the match really went yesterday that I missed, right? So that just didn't get me. And then like changing and making sure that you stick to a language that is common kind of for your audience really can make a massive difference in consuming content that you put out there. And then also, this is taken from sadly, from a very big German bank. So what they did is they thought they're clever. And then there's this trend with this funny burger menu, right? So this is the desktop navigation. The left-hand side is desktop, and they had this tiny burger menu. And you, for the fuck, couldn't find the navigation on the side. And they were wondering why no one is clicking through. I was like, Jesus, what is this? Like, where's the navigation? Tiny change. Again, it's super easy, but stick to those proven methods. Don't try to kind of chase every trend that's out there. By now, you're probably wondering, what the hell does this all have to do with CRO, and why would you and should you care for your SEO team? I think that's a good thing if you made it that far. I think we all make one big mistake, or the other way around. What we should do is we should really care about one thing, and that's engagement. And no matter what metrics this kind of engagement reflects for you, for us, that could be something like bounce rate or time on site or sessions, order value, or even a combination of that, right? Whatever that is, I think that if you kind of create a unique experience that really leads to those kind of first-class on-site metrics that you define and that you can come up with, that will ultimately then again help you to kind of improve your search engine rankings in the long run. Because again, as I said, Google is really trying to figure out and understanding, what is the user's intent and what is what they want, and are you the one being able to satisfy this need? And if you do, then I think really cool things can happen. So at the end of the day, I think it's more important than ever for 2018 that we kind of stop thinking in those silos and really get everyone and all the stakeholders on board. And if you manage that, I think then really, really good things can happen. And I guess that's all I got for today. So that's, by the way, the link where you can get the deck. And thank you so much.